Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that would be ridiculous.
I mean, on the opposite side, Mike, I think you can afford to ignore Alberta. In fact, you can afford to single Alberta out and say Alberta is a problem. And I'd like to get into that a little bit more in detail when we discuss the Drummond report, because that has implications. The relative economic trajectories that Alberta and Ontario have taken in the last 15 years have a lot to do with the political landscape, Stephen Harper's success, and Ontario's financial
Absolutely.
mess. And I'd like to talk about that after a track.
Sure.
Cool. Let's go to the fall, and here we go. And that was The Fall with Why Are People Grudgeful off the 50,000 Fall Fans Can't Be Wrong album. How's it going, Mike?
Good.
Now, the point I wanted to make earlier there before we went to that track was I really think that you can take chunks of the country and write it off and have that as a good strategy. Look at what Dalton McGuinty did in Ontario. He completely wrote off the north, and he completely wrote off most rural areas, dominated the metropolitan areas of this province with his green policies, and won the election. I
That's
think
true.
much the same thing has to be done with by the progressives of this country in order to win the next federal election. You have to write off Alberta. Alberta is a big problem, um, economically speaking, and a major liability environmentally speaking in this country. Um, and we see this, and a perfect example of this is the Drummond report that just came out this week. Okay, apparently Dalton McGuinty commissioned Don Drummond to write up a report and chart the financial future of our province. And he
Don
came back.
Drummond, the banker that knows everything.
Yes, the banker that controls the destiny of Ontario, apparently. You know what I
Right.
mean? I don't. I mean, I don't know why Dalton McGuinty couldn't put a couple of people from different backgrounds there. You know, because I don't necessarily think that most people who are even thinking about this at all necessarily want to entrust the future of anything to a banker, and just a
Hmm.
banker. Sure, it's one perspective, but it's not the end all and be all. You know, and you know what a banker's going to come back with: slash and burn. You know,
Exactly.
slash and burn, trickle down economics, tax cuts for the top, or I mean, not in this case. I mean, no tax increase for the top echelon of earners in this province, and slash and burn everything else. Balance the budget on the backs of the poor and the middle class of this province, and that's what we have from Dalton McGuinty.
Exactly. And I think that it bears mentioning too that Stephen Harper obviously has moved the political power of Canada around in a way where traditionally we have lawyers from Quebec as our prime minister. Um, we see a shift to the west under Harper and his focus on the tar sands, as Thomas Mulcair points out, makes it very difficult for Ontario as far as, I mean, we've lost how many manufacturing jobs here in
Absolutely,
Ontario?
absolutely, and this is my point that the relative economic trajectories of Alberta and Ontario in this country illustrate a very interesting point. Okay, in the last 15 years, the rapid development of the tar sands in Alberta has essentially um, recreated the Canadian dollar as a petrocurrency,
Hmm.
and as such has appreciated against most world currencies, and especially that of our major trading partner, the United States.
Hmm.
Now, everybody knows that a high currency damages your ability to export things, such as manufactured goods. You know,
Right.
like either we're going to be able to export oil no matter what because they can't take the oil down to the jurisdiction of lower currency value and export it from there because it has to come from Canada and the world needs it, right? But the things, for example, locomotives in London,
Hmm.
a higher dollar has clearly crippled our chances of being competitive with the depressed state of Indiana,
Exactly.
the union busting, low dollar state of Indiana. You know, so
And
yes, we're losing jobs. We can't. People can't afford to buy our goods because we're selling them in Canadian dollars. Our manufacturers have to pay wages in Canadian dollars, right? So the simple fact that our currency has appreciated to this degree, and this is something that it absolutely shocks me that no one but Thomas Mulcair can seem to get his mind around this and open his mouth about it.
yeah,
Um,
and sadly, it seems lost on most people because, once you start delving into economics, people usually plug their ears, close their eyes, and just scream, "I don't understand.
no,
I
you
don't
have to. No,
understand."
it's like it's one of the reasons that I want to talk about economics on every single show because maybe it's not as interesting as talking about like wars and all that like that other stuff, you know, and stuff like I don't know, internet privacy and abortion and stuff like that. But
Yep.
it's the money. Everything is like all this stuff
And
boils down to the money, right?
I got to
And
admit
it's
too,
easy.
Tony, that it took me a while to understand what you're saying, because there was a foolish part of me that was really happy that the Canadian dollar was worth more than the American
Oh
dollar,
yeah, no, you
thinking
can
we're
buy. You
shoving
can
it
go
to
to.
the Americans, and
Yeah, you
and
can.
it's
Oh,
that's the
shit.
least
Well,
important aspect of
I'll
the value
tell
of
you
our
what, Mike.
money.
The Americans want their currency to be devalued so they can be more competitive.
Exactly.
It's the way currency wars and currency manipulations have worked for the past 500 years, since there's been currency, since there's been different countries using different currencies, since there's been international trade. You compete. Sometimes it's advantageous for you in certain ways to have a high value of your currency. Sometimes, when it comes to exporting things, it's advantageous to have low value currency. Right? In Ontario, we're a manufacturing sector. Yeah, sure, we have mines, we have forestry, but that whole golden horseshoe sitting around the Lake Ontario there, that is all manufacturing. That's what the economy is there.
Hmm.
And our high dollar does not allow for us to export our goods anymore, which is resulting in massive, massive flight of jobs to the south.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact number, but it's really high. It's in the hundreds of thousands of jobs lost over
Yeah,
the
I know it's
last.
insane. It's insane. We're a have-not province. Ontario used to be the economic engine of Canada, but now, since we have a petro currency, right? Alberta is living like royalty, and the rest of Canada is suffering. So, the fact of the matter is, yes, yes. I mean, what the most annoying thing, my pet peeve in the world right now, the most annoying thing ever, is for me to listen to people slamming Dalton McGuinty because of the economic condition of Ontario. The provinces have the ability to do things that affect the economy of the province, but they're working on a closed-end system, right? Because they
Hmm.
can't print money, they can't set interest rates, all of these things that affect monetary policy, they have no control over. That's the federal government, right? So right now, Ontario is doing everything that a conservative could ever dream of, right? Which, for reasons that I'd like to talk about in a bit.
Hmm.
But the main point is, Ontario um, manages a zero-sum set of books. They have money coming in, they have money going out. There's nothing they can do to manipulate the supply of money in total in the system, right? So as a percent, they can tax as a percentage of their GDP. They can't do anything directly to flood money into the system or manipulate the GDP directly, like the federal government can, because they can print money, they can set interest rates. So, given the fact that Dalton McGuinty has done everything that a conservative could possibly dream, like taking tax hikes for the wealthy completely off the table, and in fact cutting taxes for profitable corporations, right? We're now the lowest tax jurisdiction in Canada, and so he can't be much more conservative. So what are these conservatives doing slamming Dalton McGuinty for? You know what I
Right.
mean? We have one of the lowest cost provincial governments in Canada, and we're the lowest tax jurisdiction. So, what's the problem? Okay, the problem is this. Our dollar's too high. Perhaps if Steve, and given the fact that the only person that can actually influence that situation is Stephen Harper, where is the mainstream media? Why can't they discuss the fact that our dollar is crippling Ontario? Why is Thomas Mulcair the only guy? You know
Right,
what I mean?
and then it's only a passing mention. In fact, I don't think there's been any articulation about his points. It was just it got not even coverage in the sense of they wanted to talk about it. It just got mentioned in passing.
Do you want to win votes in Ontario as the NDP with Thomas Mulcair? Thomas Mulcair can sew up and solidify NDP or the NDP's hold on Quebec. He can do that. That's the
Right.
candidate they have that can do that. Do you want to win votes in Ontario? Teach Ontarians exactly why we're so screwed right now.